All right, so here's some common mistakes that we make when we're saving for retirement. And these aren't in any particular order, but number one is quitting your job too early. Now, most jobs, they give you an incentive to stay in your retirement plan by giving you, matching contributions and giving you stock options and things like that, profit sharing, but they come with a hitch. You need to stay normally for about 5 years, which is what I've seen pretty common with most companies, is they want you to stay 5 years to get that investment into your account. Now, obviously, if you're, 6 months into this job and it's just not working out for you, yeah, you probably want to go ahead and move into another position somewhere else. But if you're at 4.5 years with 6 months left, it might be okay to go ahead and gut that out and stay that extra 6 months. And that walks right into number two. Number two is not saving early enough. So the eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest. And I'll tell you what, for me, it was $100,000. Once I reached $100,000, which it seemed like it took forever, then it kind of took off from there. But according to the IRS, you can put up to $23,000 per year into a 401k or some tax deferment like that your company offers. And that is split between traditional and Roth, but the total can be $23,000. Now, if you're 50 years old or older, you can go ahead and put an additional $7,500 a year in those accounts. And that can really add up pretty quick. Now, for those of you who are self-employed or your employer doesn't offer you a 401k, you can still start your own IRA and put contributions into that at a rate of $7,500 per year plus another $1,000 per year if you're above age 50. They call that a catch-up. So not saving early enough is a big mistake, because compounding interest, time is your friend. So number three on my list is not having an up-to-date financial plan for your retirement. Well, what do I mean by that? So there was a commercial here, it's been years ago now, but it was, what's your number? And I kind of baked into that idea, and I figured out a number that I wanted to hit, and it stayed fairly true, but it always cracked me up. The guy's carrying this big sign with $1 gazillion on his side. Well, yeah, that's a great financial plan. If you want to try to get $5, $10, $15 million by the time you retire, hey, you've done very well. And you could probably go ahead and retire much earlier than most of us. But not having your plan up to date can really affect your financial plan. I mean, what if your kids take off and move to Arizona or Nevada or Montana, and you want to go ahead and go with your kids and your grandkids? My wife and I were very fortunate. All our kids stayed fairly close. They're, for the most part, all in Texas. And so we didn't need to move. We don't have the most desirable location in the world, but we got a motorhome, so we can go travel and see everyone. And most of them are actually within about a 200-mile radius, so it's not really a problem. And something else I've talked about in several videos is you may not have the decision as to when you retire. Health problems. It's estimated that nearly half of Americans end up retiring because of health issues for them or their partner. And that can really put a kick in the butt in your retirement plan. So you need to go ahead, like I said, and plan to retire early. Even if you feel like, hey, I want to work till my full retirement age, make that plan, build that plan so you can retire at 59 and a half, 60 years old. And then if you want to continue working, hey, great, that'll work out just fine for you. But always plan to retire early, because the decision is not all up to you. Could be layoffs, things like that, a big market downturn about the time you're planning on retiring. So it's not all up to you. And number four, to me, this is the crazy one. people leave money left on the table. What do I mean by that? Well, your company, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll match 3%, 5%. My company actually matched 7%. I was very lucky. And our company did a study, and 28% of the people who work there, and all these people are making, $40 an hour plus, working in a refinery, but 28% of them were not contributing at the full 7%. So when a lot of people, and you'll hear this in a lot of videos, they'll say put in the full amount. Well, you got two full amounts. You got the $23,000 that the government allows you to put in your 401k, and you've got the matching, in my case was 7%. To me, putting in the full amount, you need to at least match what your company contributions are, because that's just money left on the table, folks. To me, that's crazy. But that's one of the big saving issues that I see is people want to adjust that all the time. They want to, this month I'm going to cut back by 3% on my savings because, we want to start saving for a trip to Disneyland or something like that. So make sure that you put in at least the matching amount, because otherwise you're just leaving money on the table. And number 5, this happens to a lot of people. You know what? You walk around work and you kind of got your ear out and you're going, hey, they said that's a pretty good stock. And we actually did. We had a guy in our shop who hit on a penny stock. He put I think $50,000 in this penny stock, and he hit. And it yielded him about $2 million. And he's a young guy in his mid-30s. He went ahead and pulled a bunch of that money out and paid off his house with it. But I talked to him about a year and a half later, and he said, most of it's gone. At least he got a free house out of it. But these hot stock tips, you got to be careful of those. You got to be careful. There's a lot of people on YouTube, and there's a lot of good people on YouTube who are going to give you good, solid advice. But there's some out there that have their own agenda. So be careful where your investments go to. Myself, personally, I had a pretty good nest egg in my late 30s, but unfortunately, I worked for a company called Enron. Yeah. So you can imagine how that worked out. I pretty much lost everything, had to start over again. And luckily, I won't say it was by chance, I won't say it was by research, but I went to work for a company that had a pension, had a 7% match, and I was able to build that back up rather quickly. So be careful how you invest your money. You can get into even mutual funds. You may think, well, I'm in all these mutual funds, and that's got to be safe, right? Well, you got to look into the fees they're charging. Some of these mutual funds have really high fees, and you don't want to get into that. Me personally, I stay pretty much with the ETFs and the trust funds, and I stay about 60-40, but I'm in retirement. If you're younger than I am, or you got to play catch up, you might want to go 70-30 or something like that. But invest wisely, do your research, and make sure that you're not just throwing money away or putting it out there on the table. Same thing, you can't just put your money in a bank and call it good. It won't keep up with inflation, and you're actually losing money at that point. Okay, and number 6 is not rebalancing your portfolio. I talked to a couple of guys I knew who I really, really respected in how they did their planning, and they were officers in the company I worked for, and they said, I just stick my head in the sand like an ostrich and let it roll. Well, every once in a while, you got to look at your portfolio, because if stocks are doing their job and they're gaining a lot, the next thing you know, you could be in a 90-10 or an 80-20 portfolio when you really want to be in a 60-40. So you've got to rebalance that once in a while. Your assets in trusts and things like that, and T-bills, that might start to take over. So rebalance that portfolio once in a while. I'm not talking about every week or every month, probably not even every quarter. I used to do it about twice a year. And sometimes I just take a quick look at it and say it's close enough, but you don't want to let that get way out of whack, because then if you get a big market downturn, you could lose a lot of money in a hurry, or if the market shoots up, you could be leaving money on the table. So rebalance that portfolio. All right, and the next one is poor tax planning. And what do I mean by that? Poor tax planning, basically, if you have all of your money in a tax-deferred account, that can be a problem, because when you go to draw that out, when you pull those assets out, you're going to be in a much higher tax bracket than if you had a brokerage account or a Roth IRA, which you put your money into after you've already paid the taxes on it. The Roth is great because all the gains that Roth account builds up over the years, those are those are tax-free as well. And that could be a real game changer for you. I wished I'd have put more money into it, because you can't contribute that much to a Roth. I don't know what the numbers are today, but they were about $5,400, $5,500 back when I was working. And, it wouldn't have hurt me a bit to go ahead and max that Roth out every year. That way I could keep myself in a lower tax bracket and still take out, up to around $100,000 a year just for living expenses. But unfortunately, I didn't do that. I am offsetting a lot of that with a pension, which I also got to pay the taxes on, but we'll make it work. Anyway, poor tax planning can really hurt you. The other thing you got to think about, if you got all your money in tax deferred and you don't have any other way of drawing that income out, and I know I'll probably get a lot of hate in the comments, but you may want to put off taking your Social Security until your full retirement age, or maybe even extending that out a little bit. And why does that have any basis? Well, because RMDs, required minimum distributions. When you get to be 73, or some of you who are younger, probably be 75, you have to start taking a certain amount out of those accounts. So those of you who are just planning on, well, when I get to full retirement age, I'm only going to take just a little bit out of my IRA. Well, you could end up having to take a lot more out of that than you think you would, because the government is going to get their tax money, and that's what they're doing, is they're trying to regain some of those taxes, because I don't know how many $1 trillion are in 401k plans, traditional, that are tax deferred, but it's a lot of money, and they're going to make you start paying those taxes. So take a look at your plan, make sure that you don't have way too much in your tax deferred accounts, and if you have to, you may have to look at Roth conversions to kind of lower that exposure to paying all those taxes. All right, and this next one, what is it, number 8? This next one, number 8, we've all probably heard the story where a coworker leaves and goes to work for a different company, and they don't do anything with their 401k, and all of a sudden it gets cashed out, and they end up with this check and don't know what to do with it. Well, I think it's right around 60 days you have to get that back into an IRA or another qualified tax-deferred account before you start incurring all those penalties if you draw it out before 59 and a half. And those can be pretty steep. That can be up to about a 20% hit if you did it completely wrong. So make sure if you leave your job that you take a look at your money and get it rolled over into another account. You don't have to directly roll it over, but that's kind of the safest way to do it, is set up another account and then have them send you a check, or they may send it to the other holder, and they'll put on their FBO in your name, and it'll roll right into that qualified account. If you don't, and you do receive just a lump sum check, make sure you've only got 60 days to go ahead and get that into another account. Otherwise, you could be paying some steep penalties on that money. All right, and number 9 is not taking into account healthcare costs. In 2023, it's estimated that the average couple, or if you have a partner, will spend $315,000 out-of-pocket cost after taxes for healthcare costs. It's nothing to take lightly, and that doesn't really include the long-term health care. So go ahead, take health care, take it seriously. even if you're not planning to retire until you're 65 years old, Medicare doesn't cover everything. You need to figure in that you're going to be paying for some subsidized health insurance, or that you're going to have to, take that out of your pocket. So healthcare costs are something, I missed that one when I did my initial plan. That was me. I completely missed it. I was figuring about $1,000 a month, and when it came right down to it, a year from retirement, and I did a little more research, and I figured out it was $1,700 a month. Well, I didn't have to, but I went ahead and worked another year to pay down some of my monthly expenses. Basically, I just had a vehicle that I thought, well, it'll be paid off by the time I'm 65, and my budget was fine until I figured out that healthcare costs. We really didn't want to take that $700 a month haircut off of our living expenses. So I worked pretty much another year. We paid that vehicle off, and things are good now. But had I not caught that, that would be pretty hard to go ahead and make up that $700 a month. So there you go. There's 9 things that can really affect saving for retirement. And I hope you're having a great day out there, and watch this next video where I go into depth about lifestyle changes and retirement choices that you want to avoid. And it'll be right here.